The story of each immigrant who arrives in the United States is unique. Today we'll have a conversation with an African woman who has settled in Vermont and a lawyer who helps immigrants working to become American citizens. Next on Connect.
Connect on Vermont PBS is sponsored in part by the Alma Gibbs Donchen Foundation, supporting Vermont institutions that support the underserved and promoting the betterment of life for all.
The journey from Burundi to a home in Vermont has not been an easy one for Alicia Araje. The single young mother experienced bias, hunger, and homelessness in her first year in America. Now settled with a job and a home, she can afford to think about next steps. Erin Jacobsen, lead supervising attorney at the South Royalton Legal Clinic and assistant professor at Vermont Law School, helped Alicia progress through the maze of a complicated and often unsympathetic system. Welcome, Alicia and Erin.
Thanks.
It's great to have you here.
Thanks.
You know, as I said, the story of every immigrant is very unique, and in Alicia's case, leaving a relationship's put her and her infant daughter in a very vulnerable position. So I'm going to start with you, Erin, about what rights did Alicia have then, and do immigrants have when they first are here, or even their access to services?
Yeah, that's kind of a complicated question because every immigrant story is different, and often it's a complicated process to find legal status and stability in this country, as you know, Alicia. In terms of Alicia, she has, when anyone is in this country, they enjoy all the due process rights that you and I do. But access to the legal system can be difficult when our laws are confusing, and there's often a language barrier when people first get here. In terms of Alicia's legal rights, she came to the United States in status, but then that status ran out. And so then for her to find stability here, she really needed to find a way to keep her legal status and work authorization and all the opportunities that comes with that.
Well, let's ask Alicia then. So language is a major barrier and can lead to a lot of isolation. And although English is your fifth language?
Yes.
I think what other language? You have French, of course, and
French, Kirundi, Swahili, and I speak some Kinyarwanda. I can hear Kinyarwanda.
Wow. So this is your fifth language. It's not you, but you didn't have much English when you first came. How did that lack of having English affect your finding services?
I think it was difficult because I think even though you use interpreters, they can't interpret the way you want them to talk, like the way you say it. They would just speak it the way they hear it, but that's not how you meant. Like it's easy to speak how I feel because it's direct, so people can empathize from what you say. But even though it was hard for me, even though I was crying, the interpreter is not going to cry. Right. So it was really hard to.
And a lot of it is by phone, and it's hard to talk on the phone. Or if they say, no, you can't call us, you have to call another office.
It was really hard. It was really hard for me because I tried. I tried mostly to call, but then I think the hardest part was once you're trying, even if to put your English together, they can hear it. Sometimes they are not patient because they have maybe other callers they're waiting for, and some will just send you to a waiting phone, like the music for hours, you just hang out. The good ones, we give you a number to call. There is others that we say, can you wait a little bit, and there will be a music until you just hang up. Right. Because they can hear you, and now as I speak a little bit, I get to understand, but it's really frustrating. In the moment, I couldn't understand why they can't hear me.
And you're an interpreter now, so you have a very sympathetic ear.
Yes.
But so 4 years later, you have a job, you have an apartment, a good school for your daughter, and citizenship. What was that like to become a U.S. citizen?
I remember when they even sent me a letter saying that I was going to get it. I can't describe how I was so relieved, and it was like just I did it. Finally, I did it. I never think I was going to get there. And knowing that my daughter has the American citizenship and I couldn't fight as much as I wanted. And I had some barriers into doing some stuff as immigrant. Just knowing that I was equal and I can do anything as an American was a relief to me to know that my baby now is mine 100%.
Right.
Now I can fight for her. So
Right.
it was just amazing.
And
Great.
she is an American citizen.
Yes, she is.
As well. Erin, what do you experience as a gap in our general understanding about immigrant and immigrant status? You work on this every day, and it's all over the news. And you know, what do we really not get about what immigrants can or cannot do?
I think one of the biggest misunderstandings when it comes to immigrants in this country and in terms of U.S. policy and laws is the opposition to immigrants and immigration that I hear most frequently is that they're going to be a burden on our society. And you rarely hear about how hardworking and how persistent and creative and industrious immigrants are. And one thing most people don't have any idea about is the fact that even an immigrant who is in this country without papers or undocumented, maybe doesn't have the legal authorization to work, but is working, the IRS has made it possible for them to get an ITIN, which is a number which allows them to pay taxes. So we have a lot of people working really hard here, oftentimes in jobs that other Americans do not want to do, paying taxes, and then they have no rights to benefits. Right. So it's quite the opposite of immigrants are a burden on this society, and how can we enforce our borders?
We'll get back to that. I want a little bit about growing up in Burundi. Your family must miss you, but what do you see as differences between your Burundi culture and American culture? What was your upbringing like?
I think the biggest thing that I missed was, I don't know how to say it in English, but we were all together. Like you had your family, you had your friends, we always go out. So even though life was hard, you have each other, and that's what I didn't ever have here. Everybody's apart. Either you need to call the agencies that can help you, but even if people can witness it and see it, they just walk by. It's like you have to call people or some other people to help you, even though I know I can give you food, or even though I know I can give you a ride. That's not my country, and that was really hard for me, I think, mostly.
So people really stick together, but
Yes.
it's still a place in crisis. 2 civil wars, violence around you.
Yeah.
But family so they must miss you very much.
I miss
family.
them too.
And you miss them too.
Yeah.
How did you imagine life would be in the United States?
Heaven. That's just paradise. Just one thing I can, when someone tells you about America, it's a place where you're gonna go and everything that you didn't think would be possible is going to be possible. Everything. Like they don't tell you what's impossible, but you know it's where all your dreams, all your thoughts, everything you thought you'd never find home, this is the place to get. So I would just say,
So
paradise.
You were surprised that it wasn't?
At all. It wasn't. It wasn't.
So we'll get back to that. Is this typical of working with immigrants, that they think everything's going to be resolved here, that it will be heaven?
Yeah,
And
I
is that
think
a
I hear
problem?
that a lot from my clients. I think America has a really good PR machine, essentially, that there's this message around the globe that we're the land of opportunity and you can come here and it will be easy for you to find a community and find a job, and then that's just not the reality when people first get here. And some of that goes back to language barriers, and some of that goes back to the kind of isolation that Alicia is referencing, that we're just not a country where very often people live with family members, extended family members, all close by. We kind of have that like individuals, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of attitude, and that butts up against a lot of wealth disparity and cost of living that is really hard to meet all your needs when you first get here.
So quite unexpectedly, you ended up experiencing hunger in America. Yeah. Can you help us understand that experience of a moment when you are hungry, you're not sure if you can feed your child?
I think that's the hardest question to answer because it brings me back to everything. I think being hungry here it's the hardest than home. Why? Because at home, because you have people, at least they know you're hungry. I was hungry and no one knew I was hungry. And most importantly, I think the hardest part is seeing your little baby, because this is a child that didn't do anything. They're looking at you and you can't give them anything. And I remember sometimes I would go to take the bus because I just didn't want to die in the house. I would just go take the bus. And I would see these people driving by. And in my thought, because of course I have home, I thought about home. I mean, you have your aunt, uncle. If mom can do, uncle will do. If uncle can do, auntie will do, cousins, and all of this. I was like, can anyone stop and ask me? Can anyone care? Can anyone do something? And even though, I'm going to say something, even though you have the card as immigrant, they give you a card for food stamp. There's nowhere where you're going to go buy food. Like for me, it was the first time being here. Even though I got the card, how am I going to get to a place where I'm going to get food?
Right.
Did I know that Hannaford carries cooked food? Now I know. But then you had the money in your card, but how am I going to get there? There was no one to talk to. There was no one to ask. Everybody's so doing their own thing, and then you have to figure out. I think that's where you get strong, I think. I mean, what else can you do? But it was really hard. I think it was I think that's the moment that humbles me and understand that I wasn't home anymore. I had to do it too. Right. So
you had to do it on your own. What was a turning point for you?
My daughter. My daughter she was the person that, when I looked at her, I think if everything that happened to me, if I wasn't by like if I didn't have her, I can't tell you what will happen today. I don't know where I would be today, and I don't know what I would do today, because my thinking and what I was doing was completely different.
And you thought for a while you would die. You were...
I know for a while, for sure.
Yeah.
That was a sure thing.
And I think it was at WIC someone actually finally asked you the question.
Yes.
And gave you food?
Yes, she gave me yogurt and plates and spoons, and she called me. It's just amazing. Oh God, that's just amazing. She's still awake until today. She called me when the news article came out, and then she said, "I'm Lori." I didn't know her name at the moment. She said, "I'm so glad that you're still here, and I'm so happy that you are who you are today." And I was so grateful to know that the person that did such a thing 3 years ago, she was still there, and I'm so grateful.
And made a difference to you completely by giving you yogurt.
Yes, just yogurt. That's it.
Erin, then getting a job without citizenship, getting housing without credit, these are enormous hurdles. How well do services interact to help move people from crisis, which Alicia was in, to the stability where she is now? I take it that's part of what you do. You navigate those waters.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, in contrast to how difficult it can be to access services in a lot of places, and how isolated I know you were when you first got here, I actually think in general Vermont, but Burlington specifically, does a pretty good job when it comes to a lot of the social service providers working collaboratively. And so I'm just a lawyer. I was able to help Alicia legalize her status, which is many steps and many years long. And I was able to help her access some of the benefits from the Economic Services Office. But it wasn't just me, and I couldn't have done everything for Alicia all on my own that she needed help with. Nor could any of us done everything without Alicia being such a good advocate for herself. But I think it's good that you landed in Vermont, because I think it can be a pretty good place.
I think so too, because I always tell people, like, I just don't like snow. I hate the cold. No, I'm going to tell you the truth. I hate the snow. And then I can never find another place that can do what Vermont did to me, and that's warm. So it's like it's a win-win. I mean, I'm gonna have winter time, but what if I was going to land in any other place and go through what I went through? I think the story would be different. People, like, when I went to see, she was just a lawyer for my immigration issues, and she asked me about the paper, like, I need a proof for food stamp, and I was like, I don't have it. And she said, what? And I said, yes, they told me I don't qualify. So she said, come in with the paper. I came in, and it was like 3 p.m. She was like, I'm not going home, so let's go together over there. We're gonna sit there. And then by the time we left, I got the card like 2 days after.
So people really from WIC to COTS to Champlain Housing Trust really made a difference for you.
Yeah.
So, you know, it takes a lot of courage to talk about experiences of hunger and homelessness, because there is a stigma in this country about it. Despite the fact that there are thousands of Vermonters who are homeless, who are looking for homes on a regular basis, there are well over 1,000 children who are homeless in this state and don't have a permanent home. What was your experience of people's attitudes towards homelessness or hunger?
I think they think that homeless people are people that don't want to get a job. They are homeless because they want to. They don't want to work. They smoke, they drink, they have mental issues. That's what homelessness means here. Because once you are homeless, I think no matter who you are, you're gonna fit in those kind of categories. Either you don't want to get a job, you just want to stay home and you want the public assistance to help you, or you are mentally ill, or you abuse, you have addiction, alcohol, and anything. And I don't fit in any of that. I never drink, I never smoke. And the last thing I needed to stay home. I needed a job so badly. And I used to ask people, even when I was in the shelter, is there a way I can work? My daughter was just 11 months old. I needed something. I needed to be able to provide for my baby and not just sit down. But when you are homeless and you are in the shelter, that's your name. So they don't look beyond that. They don't see that there's people there. I know there's people that I was with that had the same thinking that I do. But because sometimes they tell you so many things and you get to believe it. I'm kind of person that don't believe anything people says because you're better than anything, and you have to believe you and try to do what you want to do. But
Is there a trick in maintaining that pride and dignity and hope to move forward?
I'm a mother, and there's no way I can raise my daughter and showing her that she can fail. I want her to know that everything is possible, and sometimes it's gonna take her down for her to go up. And I think I love my life that it humbled me. Everything that happened to me, I was just kind of like a newborn. The way you want your baby to grow up, it's the thing you do since she's little. So I had to go down and learn everything from zero, and maybe so I can be able to take care of something that's coming. I don't know what's coming, but I know I'm not gonna stay there, and I'm not there. But I think I love again, I know this is not a godly show, but I'm gonna say God did that. I'm sorry, God did that. so I can understand, so I can feel it, so I can appreciate. So every single step that I take is not me anymore. I just know when it gets too tough, I remember then, and I just go on my knees.
So
I say, God, I can't do it anymore again. And I keep going and going. I just can't do it. It was hard for me
your
to do
faith comes in very
Yes.
strongly. I think, Erin, when you met Alicia, you were working for the Vermont Immigration Asylum Advocates,
Correct.
which after 30 years had to close their doors in 2014 due to lack of funds.
Right.
What is filling that gap?
Well, I worked with another woman there, Michelle Jeunesse, and she has now gone on to the the Association of Africans living in Vermont, where Alicia also does some interpretation and translation work occasionally. She's their legal services coordinator there, and so she continues to provide some free legal help. She can't do it all in Chittenden County. The need is enormous. I went on to work at the South Royalton Legal Clinic, where I do the same kind of work there alongside students. And so
Vermont Law School.
at Vermont Law School, right. And so while it's fantastic to be able to have the help of law students, and a lot of them are very passionate about this kind of work, nor can I and my students meet the enormous legal need that we see every day. And we're constantly looking for other attorneys we could refer cases to.
Vermont Legal Aid is still
Vermont
in the
Legal
mix.
Aid does a lot of pro bono civil legal aid work, but because of certain laws, federal laws, that govern what legal services corporations' funds can be spent on, they cannot do much immigration work.
Interesting.
And so that's a restriction that Congress put in place years ago. That hasn't changed, and it really does restrict the number of lawyers in the state and across the country who can take on these kinds of cases.
Well, I'd like to get to what people can do to help support immigration. Actually, maybe that's a good time for are there other things that you would suggest that people can do to help?
Well, I guess I would just make a plea to the legal community to consider taking on some pro bono cases. And there are certainly people besides myself or maybe Ms. Jeunesse who could mentor those cases. It's a really exciting, dynamic, fun area of law where you get to meet people from all over the world. And I would also just say to listen to people's stories like Alicia. I think that one reason that immigrants are so marginalized in this country is because they're just grouped into one population of people that a lot of assumptions are placed upon, and they're not, those assumptions don't hold true.
Right. And that's certainly true for Alicia. So many things that you confront around assumptions, and one of them, you're also a black woman in a very white state. What have you discovered about being black in America?
I don't know how I have to answer that question.
Yeah,
it's a very, very hard question to answer.
It is very complicated, and this is a white state, so maybe that's a little
I know,
unfair.
it is very. My daughter is mixed. I think that's very, very hard when I have to think about that, and I hope I knew this before,
Yeah.
but now it's late. But again, I take the black and white thing as when I was home. When I was home, we had ethnies, and there was this ethnies against this ethnic, and they didn't like you just because you are this way. And did I survive that? I did. Is it going to happen in America? Maybe. So here, I just take this as white people against black people. I know there's against other people. I'm just thinking about me at this moment. And if God made a way for me to come here, he knew that I can handle this. Yeah. And he's going to make a way. I know it's really hard for most people. Sometimes people, they are like, Alicia, you don't see this. I just don't want even if to see it. because they know it's there. And I know it's hard for me to just go. I can't do anything. It was there before, it's gonna stay, but I can do what I can do.
What do you hope that people will understand better from your stories?
I hope people, I hope that, first thing, I hope that people will help homeless. Because in homeless, when I was in the shelter, there were people that needed help, understanding. There were people that just needed someone to know that they are there and help them to get out of there. And that's what they need. And I hope that people would just change the name of homeless as people that are nothing. Those are humans that just don't have chances as like the chance you have. If they can get the same chance other people has, they can get out of it.
We are actually out of time, but a last question. You worked as a legal assistant for a while in Burundi. Do you have an interest in pursuing the law, or?
I think this summer there is a legal firm that called me that need to work with me as a paralegal. So I'll be going there in June.
So
and
maybe.
Yeah, maybe, and then I'll be going to school once I like it. That's
Alicia, very exciting. Your daughter is very lucky. And Erin, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
It's been fabulous. And thank you for joining us. Vermont PBS would like to connect with you. Feel free to reach us with your feedback or ideas at connect@vermontpbs.org. You can also check out other episodes and extra material, a web material with these two wonderful women at Vermont PBS's website. Thanks. See you next time.
On Vermont PBS is sponsored in part by the Alma Gibbs Donsion Foundation, supporting Vermont institutions that support the underserved and promoting the betterment of life for all.